One's a fascist and one is a very emotionally unintelligent man who needs to go to therapy.
Honestly, this is the best cinematic adaptation of a musical that I think we've gotten ever.
It's one of the greatest pairings I've seen on screen for such a big movie.
Again, in my opinion, some people are going to come at me for this if they hear this, but...
And welcome back to another episode of Pinoys versus the World. My name is Harald Hyllseth.
My name is Chris Angkico.
And Chris, as we've always got to do when we've got a guest on the pod, we got to introduce him. Y'all have heard him before on the pod, but first time on YouTube. Welcome to the channel, Doug Snyder, everyone.
Hello, good to be here.
Good to be here. I mean, hey, we just got talking about how you've actually never seen the YouTube channel. You're an audio-only listener. That's what I'm talking about, Doug.
Yeah. I mean, I'm an audio fan. I drive a lot to and from work, so this is just what I throw on at the time. It's I'm waiting for the episodes to drop each week.
Let's go. He's got notifications. Yeah, that's right. This is your opportunity to ring to click that bell.
Yep.
Be a Doug.
Yeah.
Subscribe.
Be a Doug.
Yeah.
In a world of blanks, be a Doug.
Be a Doug on YouTube. I'm a Doug on Spotify.
Just employ Doug behavior on all platforms.
There you go.
That's what I would say.
There you go. In a world of wizards, be a Glinda, be an Elphaba. We'll get into that. Yeah, the faces are good because you get it. You know why we're here. The movie of the moment. Today we're talking about Wicked for Good. Very excited to get Doug in here for this conversation as well. Before we even get into some of our non-spoiler thoughts on a movie that, if you've seen our first short, shout out to people who've seen that across the world. That's crazy how short algorithms works. We're a little light on it. I got a chance to see it a second time. Doug's had a chance to see it before any of us. But before we jump into any non-spoiler review of Wicked for Good, I do want to just go around and see about a little bit of, we're going to pay some respects to the theater crowd, because I know this is their moment. Whether you're a high school theater kid, you got into it after you got out of school, or it's just something you like going to musicals. I'm going to throw it over to you, Doug, because we just got talking about how you were basically Troy Bolton when we were in high school. The only one here who's ever gotten the lead in a show. Would you like to talk to the viewers about what that show was and any other knowledge you bring to the background of musical theater?
So it was a really stupid way to get into it, but I really loved doing vocal work. I was in choirs since I was 10, and so then when we got into high school, I joined the high school choir there. After that, but at the same time I was playing football, and I played football for 4 years in high school. And I never really paid any attention to musical theater. I liked musicals. I went to a few acting, there wasn't an acting camp. It was it was the UW summer camp that I went to, and they'd have one of the hours each day you do a little bit of acting. So that was a little bit under my background. Otherwise, I never really did musical theater. I never really did any theater over the age of 12. And then senior year, I decided I was going to...
You got your head in the game?
I got my head in the game. And it was Rent. We did the full uncensored everything, which was kind of crazy to hear that we were going to be doing that for people who were 15 to 18 years old. It's a little bit wild. But yeah, it was a good time. I ended up getting the role of Tom Collins, which is not the lead, but it's one of the leads. So it was a great time. I had a blast. It's probably somewhere on YouTube, but I'm afraid that if I go back and watch it, I'm gonna feel miserable about the entire production.
That's your cue, Jonas. Let's put it up right here.
Garfield High School 2015.
If we couldn't find it, we're going to cut this entire thing out right here.
Well, it's so funny you bring that up too, Doug, because another good friend of the pod, a good friend of ours, Julian LaPierre, was in percussion in the pit for that.
Oh, yeah, he killed it.
I think he did every single year. Oh, yeah, I've heard nothing but great things about his performance. Yeah. So this goes out. This is Julian's test to see if he's listening to the pod today. I'm going to ask him when I see him in person. But Chris, I'll throw it over to you too, because actually I'm just throwing it at you. I haven't even asked you this until now on the pod. What is your background in musical anything, I guess? And are you hiding a Troy Bolton background story of your own from me that you've never talked to me about?
I'm not doing that. My sibling has done a couple plays here and there, but I certainly have not. Before I keep going, Doug, I forgot if you said, what position did you play in football? I need to know.
I was the first string punter, the second string PAT kicker, kickoff, anything like that.
Yes, sir.
I was third string free safety, and I was the fourth string wideout. So it was essentially, if I was on the field, that was a bad thing.
Okay, but you played a smattering of positions. I was really just wondering if you played quarterback. Then it would be like true Troy Bolton.
Yeah.
I did not have enough athletic instinct to actually be on the team. It was just a small team, and they were going to retain every player that they had. So we worked with it.
Shout out a no cut team. We love a good no cut team. Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, but just to answer your question, really, just to finish it off, no, I have not. I'm not really into musical theater. I like watching musicals, and I like musical movies.
What's your favorite musical movie? Is it a Wicked movie? Is it like In the Heights? I know I'm referencing very recent films, but anything that hits the nail?
Man, I gotta look that up. It's gonna be
Kinky Boots.
Kinky Boots.
I don't know. I've never seen it. I'm just guessing.
There are other Cats, because Cats is also another big one that came out to some acclaim, zero acclaim.
Oh man,
a lot of James Corden.
Did anyone ever see Cats? I didn't see Cats. Raise your hand if you've seen Cats. There you go. You got 0 out of 3 from us, YouTube audience. While Chris is looking up some of his favorite his favorite musical movies. Oh wait, okay, I have one. What's up?
No, I said he's got it. I'm excited.
I got it. So it's it's called The Umbrellas. I think I've actually talked about it before. It's called The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, and it's basically it's from the 60s, and it's very interesting to me because the musical is the entire movie. They just sing the whole time instead of talking at all. It's all everything is sung. Everything is completely sung. And so there's just motifs throughout it where they keep talking to each other in the same way, just the same sort of musical lines, but they're saying different words. I just thought that just kind of blew me away. It's an inspiration for La La Land. Damien Chazelle is on record saying that's a huge inspiration for La La Land. Obviously that movie, they are talking and they go into song like a regular musical, but I just found it interesting because, and you can kind of see it kind of the movie kind of looks fake, very Hollywood studio and La La Land definitely tries to emulate some of that. But yeah, it was interesting going back and seeing that movie, and I was like, wow, it really surprised me. It really blew me away with everything being sung. So that's probably my answer.
Shout out La La Land and shout out Moonlight. They're a couple together forever.
Moonlight.
They're a couple together forever. Because I wouldn't go too far away from saying myself, probably Les Mis. I really did like another John Chu directed film, In the Heights. And obviously the first Wicked. I think the first Wicked is an easy 4 out of 5 for me. I mean, how are we rating the original Wicked movie before we get into talking about For Good?
I gave it 4.
Cool.
I also gave it 4. Yeah.
All right,
I think initially I gave it 3.5, and then I went back and I gave it 4.
Very strong film. Just rewatched it again for a second time this last week. I mean, I was telling these guys here before we got on the pod that I've taken a deep dive into the musical theater kid portion of YouTube. So shout out all my musical theater kids and the people who love musical theater, because y'all have been teaching me a lot about why Wicked is as rabid as it is right now. Because as people who have never seen the play between Chris and I, and we've got one person here who has seen the play, so we made sure to give one person a perspective. I kind of get the hype. It's like the Avengers Endgame moment for a lot of our friends in musical theater. Because my only experience personally to finish off this part of the pod is I got back from school, I think my sophomore year of college, and one of the homies asked me to come and sit in on a Garfield High School pit orchestra. One night he couldn't be there, so I sight read the entire or whatever the high school version is of the musical for the Addams Family, and that was crazy. I was like, I'm not built for this. You play jazz for 15 years, it doesn't really prep you for 3 hours of music, just straight. And solos, you got solos going on. Y'all are doing the Lord's work. I appreciate everyone in musical theater. There's a lot of stress and pressure that I was like, I've experienced firsthand, and I was not built for that life. You look like you're resonating with that a lot, Doug. I mean, obviously we're talking about a star of a show right here.
Well, I mean, just sight reading in general terrifies me.
Terrifying.
The fact that you had to do it for what, 3 hours?
3 hours, dude. It was like the penultimate, the final, what is it called? I mean, when it's curtain closed on final night, but it was like the night before the final night, so all the kids were completely dead. You've been running the show for multiple nights.
Yeah, we're all like chugging ginger tea in backstage.
Yes, got to keep the vocal cords like looking, feeling good. I mean, really shout out the high school students that are going to get a chance to perform Hamilton too. That was some very fun news that came out recently. Lin-Manuel Miranda announced that they're releasing the high school version of Hamilton finally in the next year.
What's the high school version?
Any school across the country starting in 2028 can perform Hamilton and not get in trouble, basically.
Yeah, so that's what I mean.
It's just a law saying there's not a copyright.
It's basically officially Lin-Manuel Miranda officially saying that you can perform Hamilton whenever you want.
Boy. All right.
Yeah, and you're not going to have Lin-Manuel Miranda knocking on your door. You'd be like, I'm going to need that public school money real quick. I'm going to need that real quick. But anyways, this is all a precursor to say that we're jumping in to our non-spoiler review of Wicked for Good, the sequel to the hit movie that came out last year, just titled Wicked, but we're going to refer to it, I think, as part one throughout the pod today. And as I'm going to throw it over to Doug to give us a little bit of background as well. One, I want to ask your opinion on Wicked for Good, and then do a little bit of comparison with the stage play that it's famously based on. As we talked about off the pod, you have an opinion about how like they kind of compare. And for the listeners and the viewers of the pod that aren't familiar with what part of the play that this is adapting comes after the intermission that's in the real life famous play. So I'll throw it over to you because where we left off before everything goes crazy in this film, I'm floating, I'm flying through air when Cynthia Erivo is just belting and singing some of the best songs I've ever heard in my life. So I'm gonna throw it over to you. Is like, where does that leave us after the intermission? But this is like a 1 year intermission as well, you know?
Yeah. So I mean, so far for Wicked Part 1, that followed Act 1, not to a T, but pretty well across the board. Obviously there was some expansion, and then it leaves on the same cliffhanger that you get the intermission for the play and the movie. So it pretty much starts off the same way with the play. Act 2 starts off with it's this announcement that Glinda and Fiyero are now engaged. Everything's going hunky-dory in the public eye, and it's been 7 years? I forget the exact number, but enough time has passed to where each of the characters have kind of settled into who they are, what they're about. Enough has changed significantly for them to be the character that the public is demonizing now. It's not just like everyone flipped the switch. There's been enough time for animals to become more demonized, for Elphaba to now be the Wicked Witch. Madame Morrible, who is a very backstage character in the play, has taken a lot of stage presence or screen presence in the movie. So I would say the biggest thing to compare, without giving any spoilers, is that there is a lot of stuff, yes, that happens in Wicked for Good. The other thing to consider with that is that in Act 2, all of that stuff still happens. There's only one or two things that the movie really hits on that doesn't happen in the play. So what you've seen on screen is not going to be far off from what you would see in like the Paramount Theater if you're in Seattle. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to throw it over to you, Chris, as well, as someone who has not seen the stage play. But I know you're a slight, you're more familiar than I was with what happens in Part 2. I know there were some plot points that did surprise me when we watched it the first time. But as someone that just kind of has a basic background on it, how did you leave the theater now that we've had a few days to think about a full, coherent thought on what you thought about Wicked for Good?
I mean, my main thing is that as someone who was not too familiar with like how the events of the play were going to unfold, I knew a couple things, like you said, but like just how it was going to like tie into the Wizard of Oz. That was probably the thing I was most excited about going in, again, knowing nothing. And that was the part where I think I was the most disappointed. Again, that's just how the play is, like Doug said. But just as someone who had not seen it before, I was kind of like, oh, this is how you handled that. Like, this is how this is handled. Like, yeah, it's just for as good as the first half is. I think the first half is so good because it gets to be its own thing. It gets to like create the lore of the Wicked Witch and like Glinda and like give them a relationship. And then the second act, you come back from like the the intermission, or like the year-long intermission in this case. You come back, and now all of a sudden, the house needs to fall from the sky. You need Dorothy to show up. You need these four people to go together and see the wizard. It's like when you see all that unfold, I was just kind of like, what is happening? And then also too, the music. I think it's probably a general consensus that there's not as many memorable songs in the second half. There's definitely a few. There's definitely a couple that like really stood out. But in general, yeah, it was just like a very just messy experience on my end, and that's where I'll leave it for now.
Yeah, and I gotta echo, I think, a little bit more about what Chris was feeling about Wicked for Good. I know my background is that I was a little grumpy. I was a little grumper watching it on opening night on Thursday. I know Chris knows I was running on very little sleep, and we saw one of those 10:30 packed IMAX showings, which was fun. It's always a good time to watch these, because I mean I have to quantify this as an event movie. Like we were talking about, this is like the Avengers Endgame event for a lot of people. Like a lot of people have been looking forward to Wicked as like the biggest movie adaptation of one of the biggest movie musicals that's ever been written. So I wanted to have a chance to watch it again. We just got out of a chance to see it today with Bradley, right? I went and saw it with our friend of the pod, Bradley. I think on a little bit more sleep and a bit more kind of like consensus of what I know other people think about the second half of the play, I was able to enjoy it a little bit more. But I think a lot of that joy came out of the really strong performances from Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. I mean, they're two of the greatest. It's one of the greatest pairings I've seen on screen for such a big movie like this. I mean, outside of indie art house or any kind of smaller films that like have and really like rely on two strong leads to carry the plot of a film, like obviously the plot of Wicked and being in the Ozian universe is huge. It's bigger than any one character, but the beloved nature that people have towards these two individuals is Elphaba and Glinda, characters that have existed for over a century. I mean, it's kind of hard to think about these not being two of the more iconic, if not the most iconic interpretations of the characters thus far. Now, that being said, they can only really carry the film to a certain point. I think there's a lot to do with the plot of the second half that I really don't enjoy. A lot of the political, we're going to get into the spoiler portion of this later, but there's things this movie's trying to say. And I mentioned political because it is an incredibly politically charged idea of a movie at its core. I know reading a bit and getting a bit of background on what the book was about kind of shows you where this all comes from. Like, darkest interpretation of Wicked is the book. Second darkest is the stage play, and this is probably the lightest of the three. And it tries to teeter a line that I just don't think it really succeeds in doing. And I can see the direction, and I can see how it lies on these really strong performances. I mean, even characters that are played by like Ethan Slater, I really enjoy some of what Ethan Slater's got to give in this movie. Again, that's a big spoiler, so we're going to get into that after this break here coming up. But I just think there's far too much empty air in the bubble, proverbially saying it, like an empty air in the bubble that really doesn't land for me. Strongest performances cannot carry the film to what I also agree is somewhat of a messy end. To something I was really excited about. I think there's nothing that was ever going to benefit from the intermission as well, being a year long. And I think if you watched it like in the course of a play, or maybe if this was one movie, I'd be a little bit more, I'd feel a little higher on it as a film, as a standalone project. So that's where I'll leave it as well for my non-spoiler review. Anyone else got anything else to say before we throw it over to the other side of the break?
Yeah, I'll step in real quick and say this. I forgot to give my opinion earlier, but the opinion that I have with this is that honestly, this is the best cinematic adaptation of a musical that I think we've gotten ever. And that's not to say that musicals aren't better than Wicked or anything like that. That is more of a personal interpretation, but end all be all, no movie production has done as well as a play could do as these guys have done. I just cut dry hands down anything. I think that as far as if we're going from like stage to screen, it's the best.
Okay,
incredible.
I that's interesting to say, because this will be the third time we've made the Endgame comparison, but it definitely feels like the scope of it is very like Marvel movie. Like it's kind of color graded that way. Like, obviously you got Cynthia Erivo going around on the broomstick, like flying around being chased by animals and stuff like that. It feels like, again, this obviously is the theater. It's adapted to the movies. You got to make it big. You got to make it feel like the world is huge. And that's definitely like the feeling I was getting watching both of these movies. It is basically kind of the Marvelized version of a musical adaptation. Like, kind of. Like, I'm not saying that in any like derogatory way. It just that's kind of what I felt like watching these movies, because they just sweep around, especially that first shot in the first Wicked, where it's like it just like sweeps around all like the entire basically land of Oz. From that moment on, I was like, okay, this is the kind of scale that they're going for. Yeah.
Yeah, the limitations of a stage play at the end of the day, right? And I know that's probably why so many people have been excited for this, because you just, there is a lot of stuff you can do, and that John Chu and his team like really did like accomplish, I feel like. But I mean, maybe the final thing and final note I can say on this before we hop it over is just, you know, a lot of CGI in this movie too. There's a lot of physical sets and costume design in the first film that I fell in love with, and had me fall in love with this world that weren't as strong in this film. But we have a lot to say about all this, and there's obviously a lot of spoilers ahead. So if you are really trying to stay out of Wicked spoilers, please, you know, why not hit a like, come back after you're done watching it. So with that being said, we're just going to flip it over to the other side of the break here, and then we'll talk about our spoiler reviews of Wicked for Good. And we're back to talk about full spoiler review of Wicked for Good. So please kick away if you want to see anything that comes after this. But with that, I'm going to throw it over to Guess to get us started. I guess kind of how you felt about the intro. We're coming out of a year-long intermission, right? And maybe how does that feeling kind of compare to coming out of an actual like bathroom break, or you're going out for a drink, or a little bit stretch your knee situation after you're seeing the stage play version of it? Like you said, if it's on Broadway, off Broadway, et cetera, people got a lot of love for this musical. So how do you think Wicked for Good especially lands its intro, given that we have to put a lot of faith in the audience to know what happened before? I think it's a movie that you can't really enjoy unless you watch the first movie, which is a part of the point here, right? But let's get it started about your thoughts about that intro time.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going in blind, like, not only is this a sequel, but you've had, what is it, 2025, almost 100 years to know what's going to happen in this story. I mean, okay, obviously the background, but you're gonna see what happens to Elphaba in the end. If you have seen The Wizard of Oz, you get it.
What a world!
Yeah, which is why I don't even know why we did the spoilers thing. That's, you know, what we should.
Hey, there are some things I will say. There are some things that surprised me in particular, especially, and we're gonna maybe I'll just say the biggest spoiler. Obviously,
yeah, go for it.
Who are the people that end up turning into Dorothy's main crew? But maybe that's even like a huge part of the problem I have with like anything past this intro time, because it's just, I care so much about these two characters right here, about Elphaba and Glinda themselves. But I mean, hey, what do y'all think about that intro time when we're finally on a yellow brick road, deforestation? You want to talk about when this movie is hitting hard on the propaganda talk? Like, that's all the first 20 minutes of this film is, and I'm sure it's what it is coming out of the intermission. But how does it land when it's just kind of in the form of, hey, let's watch Elphaba do a kickflip and kind of ore farm away from protecting these animals before they just completely destroy the entire forest? And that's like an angle that I thought they were going to drive home. And then, I mean, I'm just jumping. I asked you the question, but now I'm frustrated, because it hit the same on the second viewing, honestly. It was just being like, I don't know why we're even touching on this, because like this is a story about two of our favorite couple right here, and like I didn't even know it's a 5-year time skip happens. Like they don't talk about it at all. It's just kind of assumed that if you enjoy the play, maybe you know it's a 5-year jump. Like, so much time has passed, and there was nothing in the movie to tell you that all that time has passed, honestly.
I think there was in the movie, and one of the big differences was at the very beginning when you see the yellow brick road being built, and they're dealing with the cruelty of the animals. That actually doesn't exist in the play. The play starts off with the announcement that Glinda and Fiyero are engaged, and it kind of goes to, what was the song? Couldn't Be Happier.
Couldn't Be Happier.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it really kicks off. But all the beginning is not there, and so for one, I thought that was a breath of fresh air. It was kind of nice. Two, it really set up the story beyond just Glinda and Elphaba, because in Act 2 of the musical, like the stage play, I'm just going to say the musical if we're talking about the play, but for Act 2 of the musical, it's darker. It's going to deal with a lot heavier stuff. It's no longer just two girls in school who don't like each other. They're actually dealing with greater problems. That's the whole point of like this drop off in Act 1, is like now the tides have changed, not in like a switch reversal kind of manner, but it's really focusing on the fact that like now they are outside in the real world. They're no longer in their tiny little pond where their problems are just personal. It's like a one-to-one kind of aspect. They're dealing with the entire world. You're seeing the effect of the animals being really kind of run out of Oz. It's no longer just Dr. Dillamond. and you're seeing the effect, not only that, but of the people's cruelty towards those animals, not just systemic, but they're kind of like starting to adapt to that systemic indifference, to where they have animals that are still talking, and they're being now like used for, let's just say, it's slave labor.
They hit on that immediately, don't they? Yeah. They're carrying all the bricks on their backs.
Yeah, and so I thought that was a breath of fresh air. I thought it was not a necessary addition, or even really a good one, because I'm not going to go into like the whole like trauma deal of like just trying to engage audience members by pain or anything like that. But it did more good than harm. What I wasn't a fan of, while I did enjoy Elphaba coming in and kind of being that like lone attack to show you that she's on the ground getting stuff done, it didn't really, I didn't like the fact that she surfed on her broom for a second. That reminded me a little too much.
Oh, that's the Aura Farm for sure.
That's the Aura Farm we're referencing.
Yeah. Like when Anthony Mackie is landing on the tour, that same reaction in my head. So I don't know. I didn't like that part, but otherwise it was so close to just being a great intro, and then that kind of kicked it off for me for just being like, all right, well, we take a grain of salt there.
In a movie where Chris and I were like, I wouldn't say it was happening all the time. Like I could kind of feel the energy off of both of us of how we were feeling about the film throughout. But there was just times like that where we were just like, I was just like, there's no way they did that. There's no way they adapted. You can't tell me that in the musical she did a fucking kickflip. I was that is sick. I was like, that's ill, bro. Like that's incredible.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where it just undercuts kind of the seriousness of the moment for sure when you just see her on a surfboard. Yeah, I'm just like, wow. But yeah, the political stuff, I mean, like just going into like the rest of it, obviously they talk about sort of not only like the slave labor, animal labor, but also like the distortion of truth and all that stuff. Like Oz doesn't have power. Madame Morrible's like the press secretary and is like spinning things. She's literally changing the weather to like change perceptions and stuff like that. And like, in the first half, it's like really heavy. They really like double down on like political commentary. It's just that they don't like follow it through to the end. It almost feels like, especially with the animal plot line, like, Cynthia Erivo's got that original song, I think, right, from the movie, like There's No Place Like Home, when she's like with the animals.
Yeah, one of the two original songs.
Two original songs. And so she's got that whole spiel in front of the animals, but the animals are like, no, we still have to leave. But then at the end, she does not save the animals. Like, it's just like the Wizard of Oz happens, and then all the animals come back. I was just kind of like, okay, like I'm just trying to remember like the order of operations to all the animals, because I think the animals just kind of like they leave and then they just return at the end of the movie.
As someone who's fresh off a scene that's not even 2 hours ago, there's this portion of the film, obviously, right, where they're talking about a cowardly lion. Shout out Coleman Domingo. I did not know Coleman Domingo was the cowardly lion until the
Coleman Domingo was the lion?
He is the lion, dog.
What?
He wore like a whole thing to the... I mean, shout out Coleman. We love Coleman Domingo, but I did not think that man was the cowardly lion, and I hate the cowardly lion in this movie. Put it down. Harald take right now. Cowardly lion minus 0.5. That bro came in and mucked it all up for Elphaba. Everyone blindly listened. Like, there is not a brain in any single person in the land of Oz except for like the main characters. That man comes in, tells the entire animal race to basically go in the Underground Railroad of Oz, and they all listen, and they're all like, oh, Elphaba's green, Elfie's green, guess we're not listening to her. So yeah, Coleman Domingo, shout out, he's the cowardly lion. But yeah, there's a period of time after that where it goes right back to Fiyero, Elphaba, and Glinda love triangle for quite a while, and then a little bit between a couple of the other people, and then, like you said, I don't know if it's like the Wizard of Oz happens. I think it's more like that's sprinkled throughout like what Wicked is, but like in this movie where you got a lot of Dorothy without any face, you've got a lot of stuff with Ethan Slater, obviously big spoiler, becoming the Tin Man. I think that's a great transformation. I mean, then what you see at the end with Fiyero becoming the Straw Hat. I said Straw Hat. Shout out Luffy, the Straw Man. I just been reading a lot of One Piece lately, but y'all get what I'm trying to say. At the very end, they come back, and the animals come back in the crowd, and Glinda's like, I just want to do this for good. Then all the CGI animals do their little smiles, and I was like, oh, I'm not feeling it anymore. This feels like we've strayed away from God. Just having all these fake animals out here. No, just like the wizard dipping, the animals coming back. Of course it happens that way.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's like that was the whole point when they were talking during the For Good scene, is that Elphaba's kind of taking the fall for this and being the bad guy. She's kind of caving in and saying, all right, well, there's a bunch of propaganda that's against me. Obviously, I can't change anyone's mind. I've tried doing that for this duration of this entire movie, and no one's going to listen. So what am I going to do? I'm going to be the scapegoat, and I'm going to take the fall for all of this. And when I do step in, make things better, because it's not about me anymore, or even it never really was. Elphaba's the least selfish person in this movie. So she kind of said, like, I'm going to be the villain. And then when the villain falls, Glinda can come back and say, all right, now we're going to bring animals back. And that's how they're hiding the return of these animals and the propaganda and the loss of that propaganda. Which is, I mean, that's kind of how it works in the real world too, right? We get a distraction. We get one good thing to happen. And then that all of a sudden, like, a bunch of other little good things follow with no real explanation behind that. And we're just going to assume that it was because of that one big good thing. So now the Wicked Witch is dead. The animals are back. The drought's done. Maybe Oz is just going to go home, take a little breather. No biggie.
Back to
Dorothy
Omaha.
got home. So, yeah, of course, people are going to turn a blind eye and then say, all right, everything's good, because now the Wicked Witch is out. She's gone. So I think that was kind of like the big thing. And as far as the dip that happens when everything becomes super personal is like when we see those moments in any kind of like action movie or any kind of battle scene where the hero's best friend gets hurt, right? That's Fiyero in this case. So now Fiyero is getting the brunt of all the violence, and of course Elphaba's going to step in, and then that's going to cause some personal relationships in battle rather than have this still stay focused on the big scope of things, because of course that's how fights shift, right? That's how plot lines shift. So I think I don't know. I don't think it was as misguided. I think it just wasn't as spelled out as some people might want it to be. Not to say that you guys are in that realm of anything, but we've had such a consistent bombardment in the past few years of a lot of plot lines spoon feeding us everything that is happening in a plot and why everything is happening that. So now we don't really have to like think critically about plot lines anymore. And that means that, of course, there's going to be a few plot holes, and I think that's okay, right? That leaves room for interpretation. Now, there are going to be a few moments in this movie where, as you mentioned, there are plot holes that just straight up don't make sense, and I think that's there too. I'm not going to apologize for every moment in the film that does that, and obviously I'm not speaking for the film at all. I have just an interpretation, but I think that the fact that not all of this is like spelled out for us is kind of a good thing, and the fact that it's going to take a lot from the plays is a good thing. And then the last thing is that while there are a lot of things that don't make sense. How long was this movie? What, 2.5 hours? 2 hours,
2 hours,
20 minutes?
14, something like that.
Yeah. Act 2 in the musical is 1 hour.
1 hour, right? Yeah.
1 hour. All the stuff that we're getting in this is just jammed into that, and they make it work. There's a few questions, but that's where the interpretation kind of comes out. Or if you want, you can go read the book and get even more confused. But I think that the fact that they expanded it, that they went into this, there are going to be a few plot holes, but they already filled in a lot of the ones that existed to begin with. So, good on the director, good on Elphaba and Glinda, shout out Cynthia Erivo, and then, and Ariana Grande. They killed it. They knocked it out of the park. I don't know. I just have, a net positive on this. That's, I guess, a little bit farther than what the common audience is saying. So it's there's plot holes. Of course there's going to be, but I don't know. I think there's way less than there could have been.
I think it's just listening to you sort of say that, Doug. It is. I feel like this movie's definitely a kind of a what's your baggage type movie, in terms of like, if you know the play, then you will come into it with a much more like nuanced take of it for sure. Whereas like someone like me, I just take the thing at face value, how I saw it, like how it hit me like immediately. And I feel like that's probably what works into like the wider opinion of the movie, is that a lot of people that are watching it like are interested in it, but have not seen the play and like don't have that kind of reference point. So it's very interesting to see that that kind of divide, maybe that's not the right word, but that sort of like that thing is like formed between people that have seen it, people that have heard the story, and people that are just kind of going into it fresh. That seems to be the kind of discourse that's happening with this.
Which I don't think is totally fair to the production for this movie too, because it can't necessarily be like the argument is, oh yeah, you didn't like it. Well, it could have been worse. Obviously not. But I just think that people are kind of going at it with this idea that this movie is going to tell me anything and everything that I need to know, and it's not going to leave me to question anything. And then when there are some inconsistencies, I'm going to chalk that down immediately without questioning it to be a shortcoming on the director, or the fact that they couldn't do this one thing right. So because it's not perfect, it's not good.
Well, I mean, maybe it's a good opportunity too, because I really wanted to ask if y'all wanted to chat a little bit about individual characters and kind of like the descent. I don't want to say, because every single character doesn't really have a happy ending, but they have full character development things going on. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, I'm gonna hijack one more time.
Yeah,
Doug, I am interested to hear, like, in terms of like the, what would you say are like the common problems with the play? How do you think the movie like fixed those, or like went on its way to fix those? And what do you think in hindsight they could have gone back and been like, you know what, I think we can clear that up a bit more, or this can be tweaked?
In the play, they kind of have Glinda's redemption arc. It's pretty just shortcut and clear. And yes, they touch on the relationship that they have, Glinda and Elphaba, and then how she's hurt from Fiyero losing. But sorry, were you asking about the good or the bad things that changed?
Just kind of everything, honestly.
Everything. Everything bagel. Yeah. Throw it all on.
Everything bagel.
I do like how everything bagel. I love it. So I do like how the animals were included a little bit more, because then that acts as an anchor for the people to actually go back to that big picture that Harald really likes. Where you're saying, wait, no, this is not just about Elphaba, Glinda, and Fiyero, and then like some kind of like skirmish between them and the Wizard of Oz and Madame Morrible, who again barely exists in the play. I would say that it's more to do with like the whole discourse of why they're fighting to begin with, and I think that really draws it out a little bit better. On the other side of that, I think that with what happens on Glinda's side of things, she very much becomes a main character in part 2, or for good.
Yeah, like it's her like story almost. Like, it was not entirely, but it flips a bit more from the focus of it being on Elphaba to Glinda.
It does, and in the play, it kind of becomes a little bit more clear that Glinda is the wicked one. That's the whole point. Wicked is not Elphaba; it is Glinda. She is the wicked witch, and that's like the idea, right? What they didn't need to do for good, in my opinion, was they did not need to give Glinda's backstory. They didn't need Girl in the Bubble necessarily, because there's no pivotal point where Glinda needs to be wondering. Again, in my opinion, some people are going to come at me for this if they hear this, but I don't think that they needed to establish so much of how Glinda was feeling about all this. We had enough of she's enjoying her life. She's wondering kind of like how to maintain this political figurehead and have the popularity and the fame that comes with being Glinda the Good. And then the wedding crash happens, and she gets really angry, and she uses her power for evil for a second and says, you know what, here's how you can actually go back and destroy Fiyero and Elphaba. Here's their weak point. And that's a really hard point for Glinda to then, give in. So after the fact, I think that, she does that moment, and then she has her encounter with Elphaba again, where it becomes personal, and it's no longer about the figurehead. It's about this girl that she knew in college and became best friends with. And that's when she has the redemption arc. I don't think that Girl in the Bubble was necessary. I don't think knowing that she was a kid at one point, because obviously we all were, it's like with dreams, and that escalates into how we are today. That part, while, sure, it can get you emotionally attached to Glinda, I think that it pulls a little bit too much sympathy for the character, because then when she does do all of this stuff in the ending to become, in her eyes, the real Glinda the Good, I think that intro part of her being that kid and her having the hopes and dreams, I think that all takes away from this 180 that she wants to go, because she does a couple 180s, but it's the final 180 where she becomes Glinda the Good in Glinda's eyes. It pulls away from all that, and so it makes that emotional whiplash a little too muted, I would say. So yeah, the positive and negative there. And another thing that I do like is that the movie really does incorporate a little bit more of Dorothy and the Scarecrow, Tin Man, and the Lion, right? So we don't see them at all in the play.
So they're not even silhouettes in the play, then.
Oh, interesting.
No, okay. It comes to Act 2. You come in and it's Glinda talking off stage and saying, just keep going. There's no one's cast as Dorothy. And then the scene when Elphaba is yelling down into the cellar. There's no one. I think they have a stagehand off stage crying for a second. There's, again, no one cast as that. So Dorothy does not exist in the play at all. I do like that the movie brought her in a little bit just to nudge people into the idea of the timeline a little bit more. Because obviously, Dorothy's incorporated in that, but without actively thinking about it, sure. That's one way that spelling it out makes it a little bit better. I do like that they didn't include Dorothy as an entire character in the movie.
Oh, faceless. Faceless woman.
Yeah,
that faceless girl
that
walking
was the right
throughout
call.
the land of Oz.
Yeah, the director made the right call by saying, like, this is not Dorothy's story in any sense, and they were absolutely right. So I did like the incorporation of Dorothy, and I did like the incorporation of the Lion and Tin Man kind of being a little bit more involved after the fact, because, you can see all these origin stories of the characters, but then it does have that contradiction of, from the original Wizard of Oz movie, how are these characters all behaving like nothing is happening? Like, the Tin Man and Scarecrow both know the Wicked Witch. And in the original movie, maybe this isn't going to be existing in a one-to-one match, but it matters that you're seeing them behave one way in the original movie where they don't know who she is, they don't know what she's about, and then you try and translate to that as how is she acting this unpredictable in front of them if they know her so well. And so having the movie kind of fill in some of those plot holes really, really does make it easier to digest. It's more malleable that way.
Right. Well, I mean, maybe that'll be a good opportunity then to jump into my least favorite couple in this entire movie, Nessa and Bach. I dislike both of them greatly for different reasons. One's a fascist and one is a very emotionally unintelligent man who needs to go to therapy. It's a bad mix. It's a bad mix, y'all. And I don't think, what I'm hearing is people don't like Bach to begin with. Maybe Nessa's a more likable character in the stage play itself, but I really just wasn't even feeling it coming off of today too. I was like, tell me about one of the weakest moments of the entire film. And now I'm talking about the film entirely. It is that relationship, which I get comes from the fact that Bach's insecure and he wants to be with Glinda, and he's taking advantage of the Wicked Witch of the East, which, again, for someone who had never seen the play, I was like, whoa! My dumbass did not pick up on the fact she was wearing those slippers. And I was like, oh, it's because the red versus silver. Anyways, y'all get what I'm trying to get to here. But that portion of the play kind of catapults us into, I think, this is why I want to throw it over to Chris, a little bit about what we were talking about before. I do want to see if we can talk about a bit of the strengths between Elphaba and Glinda. But then when it intersects with having to shoehorn in those plot elements, now that we've heard about someone that really did like the plot elements of the Wizard of Oz, I want to throw it over to you, Chris, just to see how you balance the positive nature of their relationship with when it kind of felt like sometimes it came to a full stop when you had to talk about parts of the Wizard of Oz that had to interact with their story, rather than it just being a classic, look, if they're friends or not, a classic story of two people who are in love with each other and love what each other are about, and obviously left such a huge impact on each other's lives, in death and life both. So I'll throw it over to you, Chris.
Well, the one that stands out for me is For Good. I mean, like, they're having a moment together and all this stuff. Meanwhile, Dorothy is just in the cellar.
So funny.
She's just hanging
choking,
out. You're talking
she's
about
got no air.
The plot of Wizard of Oz is literally trapped in the cellar right now, like while they're sort of like singing. So while that is a moment, there was like a time where I'm thinking like, wait, Dorothy's just back there and she's like crying for help, and like no one is paying attention to her because they're like having a moment. They're like having a moment right now.
Cynthia Erivo's killing it too. She's like, I'm sick of you. You stay down there until you want to give me back those damn slippers. I'm like, take them off her body then. What are we doing?
That was just a funny moment for me.
It is fun.
But I mean, in general, no. Again, the two of them, like, really when they get together and they just like talk, no matter where it is, like, whether it's in Oz or like out in the field or even in the castle, like those are definitely like the strongest moments. Certainly, I mean, I don't know how far we want to jump here, but like No Good Deed, I mean,
dude,
that's a banger.
That's a banger. I was telling Chris, I was walking out, it looked like a scene out of Elden Ring. I was like, this is some gothic ass shit. I loved every moment, and seeing it again today in Dolby, I was like, oh my god. It's like that meme of the guy getting hit with the I'm just flying back, like I'm getting hit with sound and just pure wind. And that final shot of her just like in between all of the flying monkeys, I'm like, come on. This is what it's all about right here. This is why you adapt this into a movie. You know, this is what the CGI budget was spent on, and I love that.
I really liked the monkeys too. I don't know, like I just kind of like that whole arc where like, you know, they're serving Oz, and then they're kind of freed, and then they sort of serve Elphaba for a little bit, and then one of them just like starts talking and stuff like that. I just thought that was, you kind of you see them get more like empathetic, I guess, throughout the movie, which I thought was kind of cool.
The monkeys
I think
have
they did
character development.
Yeah, I think the CG, like, you know, whatever you want to say about like the CG animals, I think they did a good job with the monkeys and like making them have like expressive faces. That was kind of what I was looking forward to, because like they're the only ones that obviously, for the most part, they can't speak. So it's one of those things until the very end. So it's like you got to do a lot through like the face, and I thought they did a good job with that actually.
Yeah, the animal CGI is hit or miss. Like there are parts where I'm like, I'm seeing the little gophers at the end pop out through the meadows, and I'm like, oh damn, that could be a real gopher. Who knows? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just waiting for that crossover between. We're talking about whatever could come as a third movie. Let's get a crossover between Planet of the Apes and Wicked. Question mark.
Caesar.
Crazy.
Caesar and Wicked.
Yes. Do we love the words of Caesar? Do we follow the words?
What a wonderful day.
What a wonderful day, dude. Shout out Kevin Durant.
Yeah, exactly. Kevin Durant. What a wonderful day in Oz.
In Oz.
And then boom, you can put him in Wicked.
I do have to say, what's something that's not so wonderful, I think, are two performances that are glaring that we should spend a couple minutes talking about. One, Jeff Goldblum as the wizard. Mixed bag. And then I think another big glaring, unfortunately, for the people like us that love Everything Everywhere All at Once, obviously we all just love that film. Michelle Yeoh as Madame Marble. And I don't think either of these characters were cast as well as they probably could have, now that I have a bit of the context of how they act in the stage play. Doug, how do you consider Michelle Yeoh's performances or coupled with Jeff Goldblum as the wizard as kind of our main antagonist? Because if you take them away, other than really scary Tin Man, Ethan Slater, SpongeBob type character, like there are no antagonists in this film other than them. I mean, you could maybe argue it's Glinda versus Elphaba, both in love and hate, and it's just kind of like the relationship they go through. But no, it's like, to me, it's the antagonists are these two characters. And when a movie doesn't have strong antagonists, like I do get enthralled by them as a pair, but then when you have to go to like a Jeff Goldblum kind of being like, yes, ooh, and I love him when he's doing that, but I didn't think it worked as well in the film as maybe like John Chu was hoping it would have. You feel me?
Yeah, so are we going to judge this then on Wicked for Good as its standalone, or are we going to do the entire, package of both movies together?
Let's do Wicked for Good. Let's talk about the performances in this movie in particular, because I feel like you get a lot, especially Jeff Goldblum's rendition of Wonderful. After I've heard some other ones that are from the stage play, I'm like, it's probably the weakest version of Wonderful I've heard from some of the few that I've seen on YouTube. And then obviously Michelle Yeoh, unfortunately, can't really sing. I mean, she can literally do everything else. This is not indicative of Michelle Yeoh, even if she was phoning it in. But, she's an incredible actress in her own right that just can't really sing. So it's like, or at least in that one moment in the movie where she tries to sing a few lines, it just doesn't really hit for me. And it's kind of the same with Jeff Goldblum. You know what I mean?
I think the where those two actors fall short in like the musical talent and the kind of like the singing portion of it, they make up well for in acting. That's the whole point. They're not strong characters. They're not supposed to be. Like, yeah, they're the antagonists, but by Wicked for Good, their damage is done. They're just kind of like maintenance of the bad that they've already caused. So yeah, I mean, it kind of kills the vibe a little bit. I never really liked Wonderful to begin with. It just seems a little bit weird and misplaced almost. But it's a way to kind of say like, okay, yeah, these characters are tangible still. They're still going to interact with each other as, people, even though their figureheads are going to be causing massive wars in larger groups. But it's almost like, because they're not as significant characters this time around, it just doesn't matter. And the whole point that's exposed at the beginning of part one, or at the end of part one, is that the wizard sucks. He's just a guy who has some propaganda to him, and he knew how to be a little bit manipulative. But other than that, all he really has is weaponized incompetence. So that I think that plays into it well. And Jeff Goldblum delivers that. And then when it comes to being the person to pull the puppet strings, I think Michelle Yeoh really does that well. And she can deliver that. And when she's kind of like psychologically messing with Glinda as Madame Morrible, she does that really well. She delivers. So yeah, maybe their singing isn't going to be the best, but I don't know, because they're not very significant. I mean, a lot of Madame Morrible's singing parts in this were, I think, added in. And if they weren't, that's how little they occur in the play. So it just doesn't matter. Yeah, it is a musical. I should expect more from people who are going to be singing in that. But when it's characters like them, I'm going to let it slide. More thoughts on that later. I don't know.
Chris, do you feel like it really was one of those beginnings of where it kind of halted the film? Like like you said, you're coming into it as someone who hasn't had anything in Wicked kind of fed into your brain before this. You know what I mean? You haven't seen anything plot wise, just kind of heard a little bit about it. Do you think these two performances are as maybe phoned in? It's just a little bit too harsh, but just not as good as maybe they could have been, where it could have just greatly benefited the film as entirely if you had someone else in there giving it a little bit more, just a little bit.
Well, that's the thing. I wouldn't say phoned in. I'd definitely say miscast. I'd say especially probably in the Michelle Yeoh sphere. That was the one where I was kind of like, I don't know, like, if this was, the right fit. Jeff Goldblum, I mean, it definitely just disoriented me when he started doing Jeff Goldblum. I think that was the main thing, like, going into it blind. I was like, oh, he's just doing what he always does. Like, it felt like, again, the Marvel connection, it felt like I was watching Thor Ragnarok when he's just, like, the Grand Master, and he's like, it's another thing where he just, like, rules over the land, but he's also just Jeff Goldblum, and he's just, like, poking, he's, like, waving his finger, and, like, he can summon troops and stuff like that. That was kind of the energy I was sort of getting off of him. And I mean,
that's the energy of the wizard.
If that's the energy, well, I guess
just who the wizard is.
Now that you mention it, like, the wizard is kind of a dork when, like, they, in the original, Wizard of Oz movie, he has this very, like, imposing, like, fire breathing apparatus, and then he comes out, he's like, I'm just a guy here, I just showed up here. So in that context, I could see it. It was just that I was wondering, because I think I was thrown off because of, like, the darker tone of, like, the whole Yellow Brick Road and the animal labor, that I was expecting a little bit more of a serious Oz when we got to it. And then when Jeff Goldblum kind of is doing his Jeff Goldblum, that was a little bit of a disconnect for me when I was watching it.
Sorry.
So maybe if I could jump in real quick too and add to that, there is that portion, because we're talking about how this is a darker telling, and that's all I've heard about this, is that is a darker version of the original source material, where sure, the wizard is a bit goofier, and obviously I'm learning about Wicked as we go and watch this and try to take in different opinions of how people have interpreted this over the years. But if it's going to commit to being that darker tone, I needed the wizard to be a little bit more. So maybe that's, like, again, as someone who's just seeing this for the first time and my issues with the plot, I'm like, if we're opening this film with slave labor, rescuing the enslaved animals and their deforestation, I need a little bit more. You feel me? Like a little bit, because I don't feel like
He won.
He won. But it's
he's getting what he does. He doesn't need to be malicious. He's living the high life. He got the adoration of the people. He's got his Yellow Brick Road. He's got the animals are being taken into slaves, and no one's batting an eye. No one's worried about him other than a couple people. We don't really see much dissidence from a lot of the common Ozians. He won. He's living his life. He has no reason to not be happy. He's been winning ever since he set foot in Oz. You saw from the first one, he goes, Omaha. That's the place that he's from. He was stupid. He fell into this with dumb luck, and he's been living the high life ever since. I don't think he needs to be serious at all.
Just a corn-fed guy from Kansas.
I certainly don't think it's a matter of, like, right or wrong. It was just, for me, when I initially saw it and how it hit me, I was kind of like, oh, this is interesting. But I definitely see what you're saying.
I honestly would argue that makes a bigger point, because he's doing all this malicious stuff, and he's just off living his own life. That's there to make you hate him even more.
It's, now that you're saying it, 100% agree with that point. I think if I had to recontextualize what I'm trying to say, it's incredibly jarring. It does make you rethink kind of the classic approach to an antagonist. Now, with that being said, and through this conversation and even rewatching it again today, maybe I've been putting a bit too much behind how much I haven't enjoyed some of the more, and I don't know why I'm so focused on the antagonistic nature of some of these characters, honestly, because it is about these two at the end of the day. It is about our main two people, which we have not talked nearly enough. But maybe before we end the pod with talking a bit more about Glinda and Elphaba, I'm going to throw it over to you, Chris. You got something to say?
No, I was just still thinking about like the last thing I want to say. I don't want to get too caught up on Oz, but it's all about like intent versus like execution versus like how it like hits you. I think that's kind of what we're talking about here is like, you know, obviously Oz, like you're saying, like Oz is supposed to be this malicious guy, but also he's just like a incompetent little goof. And if that's the intent, then that's the intent. But yeah, just execution wise and the way it hit me, I just think about that. It's kind of like maybe it did have the desired effect as like, you know, what they were trying to go for. But I guess it's like, how do you get that across to like a dumb bum like me? You know what I mean? It's just, you know, that's kind of where it's like the message is hitting you, but it kind of like once it gets in your brain, it kind of like, you know, distorts a little bit, or you take it a certain way. I think because it's Jeff Goldblum. Maybe that's just the whole thing, the fact that it is Jeff Goldblum, and I just wasn't sure if he was taking it seriously. But again, that could be part of the character. That could have been why it was happening. So again, that's what I'll say there. I was like, whoa.
I mean, he does talk. Yeah, he does talk a lot about being, like we said three or four times on the corn-fed dude that just wanted to have a kid, wanted to have a family, and that's what he kind of wants to give to the people of Oz. But he's just like, he's just like they talk about voters. It's just a voter. You know, he's just a guy. He is the NPC character that somehow landed in a more, you know, in a role that determines more people's lives than just his own. So it is a good point. I think it's why we have these conversations, because I want to learn more about Wicked. Obviously, we really like it. And what we really like about Wicked, I think all three of us are our main two characters, and we've talked about them a little bit. I know that there's not a whole lot of time left in the pod to dive in, but you want to go around, maybe talk about a little bit of what you loved about, especially the end for good. Something that I personally loved a lot more in the second viewing. I did feel like the payoff really did land a bit more for that song. Like if I had to say the two highlights of the film for me, No Good Deed and the very end, For Good, obviously the namesake of the film. So Doug, how did you interpret their relationship and kind of how it built up to our massive climax of one of the biggest movies of the year?
I think it was good. I like how they have a little bit more tension than you would expect from them. Like obviously there's a lot of speculation on like, is this going to be Glinda and Elphaba falling in love romantically, which right. If you're guessing that they're not already, look, that's up to you.
Like the book. I mean, it's explicitly written in the book. Big spoiler for the book. They smooch. You know, it's like, whoa, oh my god, they actually do like love each other like that. You know,
yeah.
And it's more like you're saying, like it's more like sisters that had an impact.
I'm not saying it's more. I'm not saying it should be one way or the other. Mm-hmm. I just kind of like how it goes into that dynamic of intimacy that doesn't necessarily require romantic interaction. You know, they're two people who, regardless of sisters or lovers, they were incredibly close, and they had a moment of bonding where, you know, they were almost outcasted, both of them, for trying to go with what they believe in at different points in their storylines. And now they're coming together, and this is a really big conclusion, and they're saying goodbye to someone forever. If you had to say goodbye, you know, Harald and Chris, if you had to say, this is going to be the last time we're ever going to do this together.
Last pod.
Right? If this, maybe it's a little bit more of a grand scale than last pod, but like imagine you two had to never see each other again, and it was because the way that you two had both been driven in paths by fate. You know, that's gonna hit home real hard, and I think that they delivered that really well in this in this movie, very particularly. And I don't know, I think it matters that they're able to push into that dynamic a little bit more, and keep it still big picture about what they believed in, and they become more than just two friends who loved each other. This is also about kind of saying goodbye to the tension and the conflict. They're saying this is going to be over when we leave, and the cost of that is we are going to never see each other again. That is it, and that's going to be the cost of anything. Is like a lot of these clashing dynamics are going to disappear with the two people that lead either perspective on this battle.
For good. It is the namesake. I mean, do you think they leave it for good at the end, Chris? Especially when they split off and there's another 15 minutes of the movie. But like the strength of them on screen together, how did you interpret it, especially compared to part one?
I do like part one like a lot. I like when they get to know each other and like, you know, Elphaba is discriminated against like immediately, and even like, you know, Glinda's not doing her part. She's definitely sort of like scheming for sure. But then, you know, when she sort of realizes like, oh, like, you know, she's like a genuine like good person and all this other stuff, that's when they sort of form, and this is kind of like the conclusion of that. I just thought it's cool that like, yeah, as they sort of like diverge, like the locations that they're certainly in, like Glinda's in like the Gilded Palace, she has like her own room and stuff like that, whereas like, you know, Elphaba, she has to like hide out in like, you know, like huts and darker places, and then she goes to the, I don't know if it was like Fiero's old castle where she opens the Grimmery, and then she's casting all the spells and doing like no good deed or whatever. It's like, it's a very like visual contrast between the two of them. And then they sort of like obviously come to the head at the end when they got to go and fake out Dorothy. But yeah, I mean, I just thought, again, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, like that is like the core of your movie. You cast them to do what they did because they got great voices. They work well together. Yeah, I think I'm with the consensus. I have absolutely no problems with the way they play those characters and the way those characters get along.
I mean, it's generational. I can't imagine anytime soon, especially in a movie blockbuster season type of thing, that we'll see a pair like this. And like, I can't imagine a story that hasn't been adapted yet that is as popular as Wicked, that finally, you know, it went through production hell for over a decade. I mean, this was going back to who had the movie rights in 2009, and like it took through COVID all the way past to see not only one of the biggest movies of all time for a musical adaptation, but now probably two of the biggest after when it's all said and done, given how much people have been loving Wicked for good as well. Obviously, it's been a little bit, I know the critics have been loving it. It's been a little bit more polarizing with the audiences. Like, it's either kind of like a hard, like, oh my God, this is a 5 out of 5, which mad respect, because that is like coming out of the second viewing and having it be as loud in there as it was. I just like with pure applause at the very end of the film. Nearly sold out Dolby Theater at 1 p.m. on a dang Tuesday. I mean, I know it's Thanksgiving week, but that's the kind of like power that I don't look. Wicked definitely brings as like a property, but I think it's Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande and their charisma, and it's so special. And I think that's like purely what I love about this film more than anything. And that's why I have issues with other parts of the film, is that like, if anything with Wicked, I get that this part 2 doesn't focus as much on these two, and there's a reason for that, right? The 5 years, the conflict, obviously one stealing the other one's man's. It's kind of crazy. It's really messy, like not messy plot wise, but messy like if you had a homie and they stole, it'd be crazy. The friend group and the group chat would be going insane. And I think they play that off really well. I mean, even that one, I've heard this is kind of a big rowdy scene in the musical even, but they adapt it to when she cackles and they get in a little bit of like a slapping fight outside of the house falling. Also ridiculous. I love the house scene, but it's ridiculous. But that scene is also, it just like plays into what is so great about these two films. Independent of each other, right? I think I still fall more on liking the whole film as Wicked Part 1 more than Wicked for Good. But if there's anything I can accept, is that we should be appreciative for living through a time where we get to see this happening kind of in real time because of how special these two are together.
Well, yeah, I mean, I will say I think that is probably the main pitch for most people watching this movie. It's just watch these two belt. Because like they can belt for sure. Yeah, everyone already knew it with Ariana Grande. Obviously, everyone's got, you know, a big history with her, unlike Victorious and like a pop star. But you know, Cynthia Erivo, I think, yeah, the fact that she's like the centerpiece of this thing and it's really like made her a star. I think that's cool.
Well deserved.
I think that's very cool. Yeah.
Like one of those people that you're like, we actually did help make someone the right person famous, TBH. And last note on even Ariana Grande too, I didn't think she had it in her. The acting chops, I think, are on full display in this film from her. Like there are a lot of really emotional moments for her. Like when she does the flip, she's like, maybe you shouldn't kill Nessa, but like, I'm going to give you the idea for Nessa and like have that close up. Like that's something that hit for me a lot in the second viewing. And more than anything, obviously, like her being for good at the very end, like was really special. Now, I don't think, again, you got to wrap it up. We end up going to Arrakis at the very end. Apparently, the lands beyond, it's just Dune. I mean, we're not the first podcast to make, I've heard 5 podcasts make that interpretation, but I can't think of anything else with sand. You want me to say Abu Dhabi? Like, it's just sand, dog. I'm like, I need to know This is what they're setting up, Doug. This is what we're talking about. If they make a third movie, we're going to be in these other worlds. It's going to be the Elseworlds.
There's not going to be a third movie. And if it is, it's not going to feature any of them. It's going to be the kid. Which never was had. She didn't get... Well, I guess they're together.
Right, from the book. The book.
Yeah.
We're talking about the book now. Yeah.
That's the only thing they can do.
Yeah. Well, Hollywood has shown us that they do not sometimes care about direct one-to-one adaptations. Unfortunately. I'm not saying I need it to end now. I think coupled together, these two films do play really well. Needed to watch it again. Like, please, like, watch this film, but like watch Wicked 1 again and then go into this. Because I think that kind of muddied up my personal opinion coming out of it the first time, if y'all feel. I mean, even you see a lot of, like, one of my big things, one of my final notes, I mean, outside of the joy that I get from these two being on screen, not even thinking the first film, you're going to compare the two. Like, the set design is incredible. The costumes are amazing. I mean, they won the Oscar for it, and it was well-deserved. Did they win the Oscar for it? I believe they did. That was like the one Oscar they won.
They won one? Okay.
They won one or two. But, I mean, obviously, for me at least, I think it's costume and design.
It was definitely costume and production design.
Oh, yeah, it was. It was costume. Yeah.
It's incredible. And in this film, if they had just... And you can't really do it when you got to go do the big no good deed at the castle and you have to use a lot more CGI. But the feel and magical feel that Oz gave me in the first movie doesn't really copy over well to this. Maybe because the set pieces itself don't really lend themselves to being in practical sets as well. I mean, costume design's still incredible. But you've just got to put a lot more computer in here, and you kind of feel it, at least for me, and that's what makes it a little bit tired outside of their relationship with each other. But with all that being said, I mean, we've talked about the music, we've talked about the costume design, we've talked about these characters, how much people love them, things we didn't love about the film. I think I'm going to throw it over to you, Dad, to get us started on final thoughts, and then you want to give us a final rating for Wicked for Good.
Final thoughts. This is a musical. It's a musical. It's not like its own movie. It's a musical. Go into it perceiving it to be a musical, you're going to have a great time. Go into it expecting it to be something like Dune or an origin story only, you're not going to like it. So, take it for what it is. Don't have any expectations for what you're about to see. And, I'd say, yeah, there's a few set issues, lighting issues, some stuff that is a little inconsistent. It's not part one, but it's good. I think I'm going to give it about 3.5 stars. Yeah.
There you go. Chris, throw it over to you.
All right. So my initial rating out of the theater the first time I watched it was 2.5. My caveat is that I will, hey,
we've been booed by the internet already. We've already gotten booed to you.
Good.
I'm watching it again on Thanksgiving. And armed with what we have been saying, maybe I will up the rating to 3, but I cannot see me going any higher than 3. That's what I will say. Okay, you can boo me for that, but
it's a start. Maybe after you watch it the 5th time.
Okay, there you go.
See you guys next week. No.
Zoe also said that you guys either have to start liking the movie or you're going to have to watch the musical next time you come over. Just a heads
Let's
up.
watch the musical. I want to watch the musical. I need to see it. Haven't seen it yet.
Oh, just like on YouTube or like...
Yeah, we'll find it somewhere.
We'll find it somewhere,
we're not doing anything illegal if you're watching through here. But
we're not saying anything on here.
We're going to find a way. Maybe Wicked's going to do another run after this, but it's my responsibility now and my pleasure to bring you to the play itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You heard it here first. This is on record. So let's do it.
For all of YouTube to see. TBH. Yeah. Cap in. I mean, hey, if there's anything that I think I could say, wait, you're capping at 3. We're going 3. That's a cap.
Again,
current 2.5.
I'm watching it again. Who knows? You will not hear. Okay, maybe in the edit, we'll put a revised rating right here or somewhere around my face after the second viewing.
Put it right on Doug's face. Throw it right on Doug's face.
Put it on Doug's
Coming on
face.
our pod
Why
telling
not?
us we can't.
It's fine.
We can't have an opinion.
So yeah, that will come in the edit, but it'll be here. But right now, as we sit, it's not here. But it's here right now.
Wicked was very special the first time I saw it. Wicked for Good, as we've talked about for the last hour, to me. I find myself somewhere in the middle of both of you. Scoring wise, I did 2 come out of my first rating. Feeling a 2.5. Like I said, it was a grumpy rating. I'm finishing at a 3, a solid 3. It's a strong 3, some would say. I think maybe at the end of the day, I still need to really warm up to musical adaptations as a whole. But I think this is one of the strongest. I said, obviously, I really like In the Heights. That's a very recent one. Also, John Chu film. Revisiting this, I think, at a different time where I can maybe watch them back to back as well could even heighten it even more. But you're asking a lot. I mean, that's like almost 5-hour movie at that point, right? And it's, look, people love what they love too. And I'm here to say that I think this at very base level, going from I didn't like it to saying like, I think this is a good film. I'm just not giving it anything higher than a 3 out of 5. And again, it's so dependent on the performances, which tell me if I'm wrong, Doug. I mean, that's kind of the core of any good Broadway play. Any good play in general is like, they don't have, it's all practical. There is no computer generation. There is no AI. I'm not saying there's AI in this, but obviously for topical AF. But what's happening with Wicked on the screen sometimes I think falters in a way where it brings down the general consensus of how I feel about the movie. But the core of it is incredible. It's a 10 out of 10 core performances. Like the performances are the type of things that I know are going to leave not only a large impact on the actors themselves. Obviously, we've seen that with Cynthia and Ariana. I mean, they're just never going to forget this for the rest of their lives. I would highly recommend, if y'all haven't checked it out yet, go to check out that Peacock special they just did. Cynthia Erivo, like actually flying, kind of crazy, super epic. But it's left a huge impact on the culture, and I can always appreciate a movie that's got a lot of soul and it's impacted people in a really positive way, which it seems like this has. So really want to say, get out there and watch the film. And like we said in our mini review earlier, go out and make your own opinion about it. I mean, that's the powerful thing about it. Like you said, Doug, you want to read between the lines and get yourself thinking a little bit. Don't get it all spoon fed to you. But I'm going to end with a 3 out of 5 and say that it was a good movie. And looking forward to maybe seeing the play very soon. That being said, any final thoughts on Wicked for Good? Any more love you want to throw its way, Doug, or anything else?
Yeah, I actually got one thing I do want to say. I didn't mention this earlier, but I also continued with music in college. I got a minor in music, focusing mainly on voice. I was at the same university for both undergrad and grad program with, time in between. So I was there for 8 years in total, 7 years of performing on that, 20-year span of music focusing on how to sing. As Long as Your Mind is my favorite song in the second act and in Wicked for Good. I'm going to kind of be gentle when I say this. Jonathan, your falsetto is a little bit breathy. Squeeze the glutes, engage the core. And you'll hit that without sounding a little raspy on that. It didn't ruin it for me. I still love the song. And he's a great performer.
Sexiest man alive. You hear this man.
He's a great performer. He did well, right? He was amazing.
We didn't even talk about Jonathan Bailey. That's so funny. I don't think we meant this the first time we mentioned.
He killed it. I'm just saying.
He did his thing. No, it's so funny to bring it up.
It was the one thing. It's so nitpicky for me, but like it matters. Don't be breathy in the falsetto. It ruins the volume. It doesn't match well with with Cynthia's belting capacity. It's different dynamics. It doesn't look good if your duet is off. I'm just saying, it matters. So again, glutes, core, big breath.
So it starts at the glutes, and it's up. It's up from the glutes.
Yeah, up from the ass.
Okay. Up from the ass is going in the coming up section. This is going to be at the beginning of the pod.
Great. Love that.
Wait, Chris, you sounded like you were about to go off about falsetto.
I was just like, wow, he just came out swinging. I'm actually just shocked still. But it's so funny. Well, it kind of lays into it. Like, I mean, this is last tangent. You're like, Jonathan Bailey's really not in the movie that much. I guess, again, that's probably just a product of the play. But, like, I totally get what you're saying. Like, that, like looking back at it, I'm probably going to think about it when I watch the movie. I'll be like, yeah, he does. His way of singing, like, is not super compatible with, like, Cynthia Erivo, especially, like, right next to him.
I don't know if it's... I don't know his acting background or his musical background. I don't think it's a classical training background when it comes to voice. Like, Ariana Grande, 100% classically trained in singing. Cynthia Erivo, like, absolutely.
Erivo.
She's my bad. Yeah. So, like, he's still a good singer. He just didn't have... the same training background maybe, or he doesn't have to sing it's hard to sing high as someone with a lower voice. Like it's just harder to do that. So hitting into that falsetto, it's trickier, and because of the register, the range of this, like it's just a hard thing to do. I'm not gonna say he did bad at all. He didn't, but just
hey,
next time if there
you
is
have already.
next time.
I know we normally finish with the final ratings, but I've got to say one more thing too about something like kind of Easter eggy. Now that you're bringing it up from watching today, when you watch it again, Chris, look for this in for good at the very end. These entire two movies, Cynthia and Elphaba is singing in the lower octave of their duets. Flips. Cynthia's in the higher register, where Ariana's down in the lower, and it just matches beautifully. And I was like, okay, I kind of get it. I was tearing up a little bit. I was like, oh, they really did change each other for good. Still a 3 out of 5, which is pretty decent. That's a good rating. It's a good rating.
So defeated.
I'm sorry. I'm rage baiting over here. I'm rage baiting hard right now. I really gotta apologize to the audience. All right. I still had a great time. I enjoyed it a lot more the second time. Bradley would tell you as much. Yeah, you and Bradley should talk about it, Doug, because I think you two would have a very, very, very nice conversation about it. But with that being said, I think that's all we got for you today, y'all. Thanks again for watching and listening to another episode of Pinoys versus the World. Subscribe, like on YouTube. Check out the RSS feed. And once again, thank you to our musical theater aficionado, Troy Bolton himself, Doug Snyder, everyone. Give him a round of applause, Jonas. There we go. Cheers to the man himself for giving us a little bit of insight into stuff that we don't know as much about, which we always appreciate on the pod. Amazing.
Well, my bad. My pleasure to be here.
My bad.
There was a gap for a second. Thank you for having me on here. I'm happy that I could come out and defend the musical theater side of things. Keep the reputation up for Wicked.
Yeah. Hey, and we're looking forward to the next time to have a conversation about the next big musical theater movie extravaganza. But as always, this episode edited and executive produced by Jonas Hyllseth. You can follow us at Instagram, anywhere else, at Pinoys Versus. And I'll end this like I always do by saying my name is Harald Hyllseth.
My name is Chris Angkico.
And my name is Doug Snyder.
And we will speak with you all in the next episode of Pinoys Versus the World. Happy holidays. Peace.